My guests at this time are the composers for Dark Side of the Ring. They are Wade MacNeil and Andrew Gordon Macpherson. Andrew, Wade, thank you guys so much for taking the time to chat with me here today.
Pleasure.
Thanks, man.
Well, yeah, guys, first of all, like I told you just before we connected, what a spectacular season it was here for season 2 of Dark Side of the Ring. As a pro wrestling fan, and I think I speak for all pro wrestling fans, thank you guys for doing a great job and helping to bring some of these stories to life. I'll start by, when you hear me say something like that, Andrew, I'm sure you get this a lot. What's your reaction to hearing these kinds of stories and reactions?
I mean, we're thrilled, man. It's like it's the best feeling when people resonate with the work that you do. I mean, we spend a lot of time trying to bring it to life and trying to do the stories justice. So when it gets over, we're stoked.
Good. And Wade, talk to me a little bit about how you guys got involved with Dark Side of the Ring. How did you guys all come to be collaborators here?
Myself, Andrew, and Jason all worked on the film Goon 2, Last of the Enforcers.
Oh, cool.
Which is a bit like it's a hockey film, but it's so violent. It's almost a wrestling film.
To Goon with Sean William Scott? Is it the sequel to that film?
Yeah.
Oh, damn. I have to go find this. That was a fantastic movie. Anyway, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, so I worked on music for that.
Okay.
And Andrew and Jason were involved in the editing of that film. So obviously the editing and music is a thing that we interacted a ton on, and spent a lot of time hanging out and working on that project, becoming buddies, talking about wrestling.
Okay.
And, down the line, we all got to connect on this, which is really cool.
So yeah, talk to me a little bit. Like I know you guys are composers. I'm sure you guys, I see you do video games, movies, all these other things that you've done. Wrestling fans, were you two big wrestling fans before you got into this? I'll start with you, Andrew.
I was a big fan up until about 2000. About 97, I guess. I used to go to the pay-per-views at my buddy's place and stuff, and kind of pre-Attitude Era, to be honest. And then I think I got my first guitar in 1997, and that's kind of like took over my life from that point on.
Oh, man.
And but getting involved in the show and working so closely with Jason, it's definitely been hard not to fall in love with it all over again. And a lot of the I grew up in Nova Scotia, so a lot of the territories pre-WWF that was not on my radar whatsoever. It just didn't exist, pretty much. So it's been amazing to kind of discover that world and stuff,
Wow. Yeah. A lot of follow-up questions from that. But first of all, how much did it blow your, 97, that's a pivotal year to walk away from wrestling. A lot of these stories happened right after that. I would imagine for you hearing some of this stuff, it's got to be really particularly surprising for you, since that's right when you stop kind of watching wrestling,
Yeah, it's kind of like getting the last book of Lord of the Rings or something, I guess over the years, there's some of the stuff that I've kind of caught up on or whatever, but not in the detail for sure.
Gotcha. Okay, and Wade, how about you? What's your wrestling fandom? What level are you at?
I'd say it was pretty low key when I was younger. I wasn't really, I wasn't a really huge wrestling fan. I didn't have an older brother that got me into it, or anybody. My friends weren't really wildly into it, so just a little bit. But kind of the thing you said about at the start of this interview, my girlfriend says, I don't care about wrestling, I love the show.
Yeah.
And that's I said me
that
being a very casual.
Go ahead. Yeah, sorry.
Me being a casual wrestling fan,
right,
working on the show has turned me into a really big wrestling fan.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
It's just it's hard. It's impossible to not get caught up in it, which is what's cool about the show, but also just to learn about this, these stories in this capacity is it's so interesting. And a lot of the stuff I love about music or culture is the fact that you can do these deep dives into the wormhole of all this stuff, whether that be I don't know, like punk music or like motorcycle culture, whatever the fuck you're into. And like wrestling is like, there's so much to research. There's so much cool art and history and characters and all this stuff. And I'm like, I'm really into it now.
Well, and wait, I wanted to bring up here, you have a background obviously in punk rock, right? You were a part of that scene, you know. How much of pro wrestling feels like punk rock to you? Do they feel like similar mediums? Does it resonate with you when you hear something like that?
For sure. And I think especially a lot of the metal or the like punk that I like was pretty wrestling. Like my favorite band is the Misfits.
Cool.
And like, I mean, I think I was probably into wrestling without even knowing it, just like really loving Danzig.
Yeah.
You know, like that is like, it is wrestling. Like 80s Misfits with like Glenn being super jacked and them wearing corpse paint and like big logos and like spooky samples and like dry ice. Like it's wrestling.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
And Fitz, Guar, all that stuff there, man.
Yeah, for sure, man. And so yeah, I think there's some really cool crossovers with that stuff. And then like there's been some really interesting kind of like punk wrestling connections, I think, like over the years and stuff. And yeah, I think that's like
which one comes
definitely want something hard as nails when people are walking out to the ring anyways. So I think that makes sense.
Sounds like you have like an itch to write wrestling theme songs now. No? Am I misreading that? Yeah. Well, Andrew, how about you, man? Like, which of these stories grabbed you the most? Which one did you enjoy getting to underscore and compose music for the most?
Wow. I mean, they're all pretty close to my heart. Like the Bruiser Brody one was the first one that we did. That was a story I had literally no context for when it started. And it all started like as a story that Jason was telling me, kind of like can you fucking believe this thing happened? And it was a thing that he told me about a long time before he ever got to make a show. So when it came around, not like that was the first one. So that became like how do we make a fingerprint sort of sound for a whole series, and figuring out how we could do it. But I really love working on Von Erichs as well. Texas Tornado was in my era for sure, and I had no context for the rest of his family really, because we didn't have a world-class championship wrestling. Mm-hmm. So I didn't know about his brothers really. I only knew about Kerry.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's a rough one to watch play out then if you don't know what to expect. There's a lot of twists and turns in the Von Erich tale.
Yeah, I knew a little bit, kind of like I sort of knew about his foot, but it was like I'm looking at these things through foggy 20 some year memory. So
yeah.
Well, it was pretty good to dust it off a little bit.
Well, I feel like you speak for a lot of wrestling fans, right? Like I'm 35, so like I'm right in the thick of it.
Yeah, we're the same age.
Yeah, exactly. Like, this is all stuff to me where I'm like, I remember Brawl for All, and I was like 11 and I didn't get it. And now looking back on it as like an adult, I'm like, what absolute madmen. This makes no sense. This is insanity,
Yeah.
But you brought up the sound, right? What does this show sound like? How did you guys come to the style that you found eventually to underscore the series with a lot of synth music and things like that?
I guess part of it's me and Wade's taste. Part of it is talking to Jason, and I mean Jason really wanted to. I don't like to use the word elevate because it's not the right word, but I think it's just like use his feature filmmaking language to kind of like tell these stories.
Sure.
So, and Jason and I actually went to film school together in Nova Scotia like 17 years ago now or something.
Okay.
So we can talk movies, and so he kind of would tell us about his like feature filmmaking approach. So like the Macho Man one, he's like, it's going to be like a fairy tale gone bad, or like this one's going to be kind of like the Italian horror kind of style one a little bit, or
okay.
And so, we bring in feature film references, we bring in our own references, we listen back to the old theme music and stuff, you know, and just grab kind of some of the palette from that era, and then just like try and make it cohesive, see what works together, and you know, feels like a thing.
That sounds awesome. And Wade, how about for you, man? Was there a particular story that grabbed you? Was there one you really enjoyed getting to work on and score?
I think actually probably the Macho Man one, because it's like, you know, if we got asked to like, oh, we're gonna score a wrestling show, we're gonna do a Macho Man episode, you know, the last thing I would have assumed is the music would come out sounding like that.
Okay, yeah.
Like this very like triumphant, regal, like magical love story stuff, you know,
Yeah.
which is like what's so cool about this show
Mm-hmm.
is because like Jason and Evan have such like a reverence and respect for these stories that they want to just like present them in like a really like serious light and like tell these like really emotional stories. And it's cool for us to be able to try and play off that musically.
Yeah.
And so instead of being like, you know, doing musical paint by numbers for like what people would assume a wrestling show should sound like clunky synths like all the time or something like that, or like cornball guitar solos. And don't get me wrong, this was an incredible opportunity for me to do corny guitar solos, and I did whenever I got the chance.
Sure.
But that being said, there was also so many like heartbreaking or like sad or tender moments in the show. So we got to write like some really serious pieces of music that are more like modern classical music, or like have things be just string section or like just piano, and try and just give these stories like the seriousness that they kind of deserve.
Yeah.
And so that was really cool because like Andrew mentioned that Jason said to us like, oh yeah, that's like going to be the Macho Man Liz one, it's going to be like a fairy tale. So we got to, you know, I know we were in LA at the time and like working in the music for it, and Andrew and I were having these discussions like, well, what sounds magical? Like what sounds like royalty, and like coming up with all these sounds like that. And so that was like one of the coolest things about working on that one.
Man, and you know, you guys are obviously Canadian. I've picked up during this conversation, right, from the accents and the Nova Scotia.
Oh yeah, bud.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm glad to know that I put my here, since we're doing this in video. It's my Bret Hart, Steve Austin, Mania. I put this out just as a prop to put in the background because it's dark side. Yeah, the Hart family.
We appreciate it.
No problem. The Hart family, you know, they're kind of recurring characters. They kind of come in and out at different points for the series. But of course, the season finale was the Owen Hart one. What was it like for you guys as Canadians to get to work on that piece? I would imagine that one resonated a little bit different than other episodes for you.
Yeah, national heroes, man. I mean, you know, I remember when Screwjob happened. Like, again at the time, the like significance of it didn't fully like dawn on me, because I mean I was 10 or 11 or something when that happened, or maybe even younger than that. Like when he did the WCW thing, I was like, oh, like, but you know, that was
yeah,
that was about as significant as it was to me at the time.
Okay.
But yeah, like you know, Bret was definitely huge, you know, a hero of mine as a kid, as was Owen. And both of them, I've got to say, both of them have two of the older Owen Hart theme and the older like Bret Hart and Hart Foundation theme songs are two of my favorites of all of the WWF kind of era theme songs. So
cool.
Yeah.
I don't know. That was just like, as Andrew said, it's like it's a national treasure.
Yeah.
Like, and I don't know. Like, I think those ones, especially like pretty like trepidatious about working on those ones. Like, just like for years, like whenever my bands have went and like played in Calgary, it's like, oh, like there's some of the Hearts on the guest list tonight. And like over the years, I've come like pretty good friends with Beans Like she's like the same age as all of us.
Okay.
And she's like been coming to watch Alexa on Fire play for like the last 15 years since we've been out at shows there. So it's like my homie I see in Calgary.
Yeah.
And like so work, especially with the Owen one and just like how, the subject matter, like yeah, I don't know. Like I felt like a little, I don't know. I felt a bit not strange, just like it's something that's so close to like so many fans and it's such public knowledge to all these people, but in a weird way, it's like it's people I've kind of become close to.
Yeah.
And it's like this folklore of wrestling, but it's also like, someone's uncle that I saw like 6 months ago. And so that one was weird for me, like the other day. And, but I heard from her after the episode and she said she liked it and was like glad that we were working on it and people that she cares about are doing the show. So
yeah, yeah, man. That I had no idea you had that relationship with the Hart family. That's awesome, dude. That they like come and rock out to you. That's got to be a really cool feeling,
I feel like when they're at the shows, they're like more important than the band, which is also great. It's just like the backstage stops being like, it's not the Alexa on Fire backstage anymore. It's like the Hart backstage.
Sure. Okay. Got it. Well, you brought up how, people flock to the show, right? The Owen episode was the biggest, most watched episode of the series ever, right? This was the all-time record. No real surprise, I think, with the interest around it. But Andrew, I mean, do you guys hear things from Vice TV? What are you hearing from them as far as what they think of the show? What's next for the show? That kind of stuff. I'm sure these conversations got to be going on right now.
I mean, we, to be honest, we don't engage with Vice that much. We speak to Jason and Evan almost daily. Like they're very close friends of ours. I mean, we've been really fortunate where like, other than the music supervisor on the show, we're fairly insulated. Like we kind of take all of our marching orders from Jason and Evan. Okay. And they're good friends of ours and stuff. So as far as, like I call Jason and congratulate him and he tells me about all the messages he's getting and
from Vice that are like, oh, you're doing great, please, here's the money truck.
Well, if there was a Vice money truck, I'm not going to go there, but
got it, that's fine.
But also there's tons of messages and stuff that Jason gets from the wrestling community that aren't necessarily public that real feel good to hear about. Like, and then I don't know if you saw the other day he posted that like Martha and Oj and Athena like sent him a fruit basket on premiere day and like stuff like that really warms your heart. Like,
yeah, it was great to see them get a platform there to kind of speak their piece, and with this show, and I think it was one of the Vice executives that was speaking the other day, and they're talking about how happy they were with everything. And they noted that they could be expanding the Dark Side universe. And the idea that there could maybe be like, one of the ideas would be like a dark side of the music. Do you think that using this style, telling those stories would be something that you would be interested in? Could you see the universe expanding like that?
Well, this is my take on it. So like, first of all, ignore the title Dark Side of the Ring for a second. When we signed on, the show was supposed to be called Falls Count Anywhere, which and because the concept of the show, and I don't know if this, like for music this might work and maybe other things it won't, but like the concept of the show is that wrestling's the only, one of the only worlds where an artist or performer has to live or at a certain time had to live their gimmick. So 24/7, Rowdy Roddy Piper had to be Rowdy Roddy Piper, and the heels and the baby faces couldn't be in the same dressing room. And that like dedication to the show started to affect reality, and reality started to affect the show. So of wrestling. And so the concept, I think, originally of the show was supposed to be like the world of kayfabe, how it affects reality and how reality affects it. It wasn't ever, I think, supposed to be like world's deadliest wrestling shoots or anything like that.
Okay.
You know, I think, and so you see in some of the episodes, you know, so I see people online like, oh, that story is not that dark, or like blah blah blah. It's like it didn't the original sort of like goal was never to like tell the darkest stories. It was just to like tell these gripping stories that about people who live these, like, they didn't live a double life. They like just made this, you know, they made this gimmick their entire reality. So with things like with doing like a music version or a UFC version is another one I've heard, or like a film industry one, it's like I feel like it's gonna be a lot harder to maintain that aspect of the show, which is like you can make a show about dark stories from the music industry and dark stories from the UFC or whatever it is, but the element of Dark Side of the Ring that makes it so interesting to everyone is like, it's like that movie The Prestige, like, spoiler alert, but it's like it's about like the magic trick is not just what you do on the stage, it's everything around it. And you know, I don't know if that same sort of nugget of intrigue will carry over to other fields and stuff. Maybe some parts of music you could see, but then you're also trying to kind of maybe put a square peg in a circular hole with some of the things. So I mean, I love the show. I would, you know, I'd love to see more stories, you know, told in this kind of prestige cinematic documentary style and be involved with them. But the thing that makes this show magical is not dark stories. It's like two guys, Jason and Evan, who love wrestling, and this world that is like so not strange, but so unique, and just like bringing some like light to that.
Man, wow, that was an incredible answer. Wade, do you agree? I mean, I'm just sitting here. I'm just like, as a college theater major, I'm just like, I get that. I totally get the method and the mayhem to like how this works and how it may not apply to other industries. But like, again, Wade, back, I mean, punk rock, you know, you think about these big characters, like you say, you see elements of it. Do you see stories that can be told like this? Or do you agree with Andrew here, where it might be a little bit more difficult?
I think like it's what I'm most focused on is like helping support like the stories that are being told musically.
Sure.
And like what I want to do is create music for stuff that I'm passionate about. And like I think that kind of comes like project by project, you know.
Mm-hmm.
We've been lucky to just continue kind of like in a very like natural way, like get to work on Goon, like meet Jason, work on this. Jason introduces us to, you know, a friend of his that he worked on like the Blood Dragon video game with. Mm-hmm. We make some video game scores, and we keep working on stuff with creative people that are like-minded and that allow us to make music that we want to make, that helps support what they do. And like at the end of the day, that's the most important part. For me anyways, like I just want to play music. I don't want to decide what stories need to be told.
For sure, man. All right.
But the thing Andrew said about what's great about this show is like the love that Jason and Evan have for wrestling and how that kind of plays into it. And that's why it makes this such an interesting thing to watch. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, like, how are you going to find someone that like loves the music industry? Like that person doesn't exist.
Well, what I think is so cool about the music you guys put together for this is fans are going to be able to download it. They're going to be able to buy it now. Let's wrap it up here and talk a little bit about this album release here for the Dark Side of the Ring soundtrack. What can fans expect? Where do you want to send them to go find the music, buy it, and engage with it and all that?
Yeah, you can, like, it's on all of the streaming services. And then you can also buy it digitally on iTunes or however you want to buy music digitally. And then the people from Waxworks Records have done this like beautiful gatefold vinyl that is super neon and 80s looking, and like a double 180 gram vinyl that's awesome. And so it's being treated more like an actual record release, which is
I
nice.
want that. Can I get that?
You can definitely.
I have her email. I'm gonna get
Oh,
that.
but that's just really cool. That's like a label. I know Andrew and I were like at South by a few years ago for like a movie premiere in Austin, and we were like we're at some record store, and there was just like the hugest movie score sound like section in the shop, and it was just like pretty much like 90% Waxworks releases, and all of the art is so sick on them. And like they just like, I don't know, they put like, they just reissued like John Carpenter's The Thing, like they redid The Shining. They do like so many great scores. So for us, we're like really, really stoked to be working with them on it, because it's like we both own a lot of their records.
That's so cool. I have a not huge look. I'm moving right now, so I'm probably giving away my office, what it looks like right now. But I have my record player over in the corner there, and I sit and I jam and I listen and I enjoy myself. It's very nice. So I will seek this out. It sounds wonderful. Well, thank you guys so much for taking the time. Andrew, I'll start with you. Where do you want to send people to find you, follow you, support you, all those great things?
At Ango84 on Twitter or Instagram.
Cool. And Wade, where do you want to send people to find you, follow you, all those good things?
You can at Wade MacNeil on Instagram, at Wade_MacNeil on Twitter. You know, some other Wade MacNeil out there just quick on the Twitter draw, I guess. So you know, there you can find out you know, see pictures of my my dog, what I'm eating for breakfast, and eventually the records I'm putting out.